eagerly talk about the old bad habit of going to the lowest bidder. We have we went through a period there where cost was the most predicted cost, was the most important item in an evaluation. Air Force rules are now that predicted cost is the lowest factor in importance in any evaluation of proposals. So the projected or promised cost of a system is truthfully lower on our priority than things like prior performance of that industry team, things like the competency of the design that the industry is proposing. So it's not nearly as, we don't place nearly as much importance on promised costs or predicted costs that we used to.
Is there a program where you've done that at this point, or is that going forward?
Every program that we have awarded recently, most recently GPS 3, cost was the lowest importance in the evaluation criteria. We're putting together the acquisition, the source selection for the TSAT right now. It's the same way there. Cost is the lowest importance of all the other criteria.
And just a quick follow-up, and he also mentioned that fixed price contracts are not going to be so important either in the future. What are your thoughts on that?
Fixed price is purely related to risk in the program, whether we do fixed price or not. If we are building the 17th through 32nd GPS 3, and they're all identical, that might be fixed price contract. We're building the first two GPS 3, those are cost plus contracts. So it all depends on not simply the technical risk, but also the engineering risk of designing the spacecraft and doing assembly, integration, and test. And that tends to be risky early in a program's lifetime. So we view risk as the dominant risk, technical risk, and cost risk as a dominant measure of merit on whether to do fixed price or not. There's several different fixed price contracts too. You can do firm fixed price, which means when the product is delivered, you write a check for it. There's fixed price plus incentive. I like having on-orbit incentives for the satellite working properly on orbit, or for the launch vehicle successfully delivering the satellite to the right place in the sky. So fixed price plus incentive is a good motivator to me. But when the risk is high and costs are hard to predict, when technical risk is high and costs are hard to predict, we tend to prefer cost plus contracts. Yes, sir.
I'm Ben Ionata from the C4ISR Journal.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Let's see. What can you tell us about the agreement between Secretary Gates and DNI Blair about the EO way forward?
I wasn't in that meeting, so I can't tell you much about it. Sorry.
So it looks like the Air Force, the military and the intel community going separate paths on reconnaissance satellites, future satellites. So you haven't had any input into that?
Let me throw a little, let me amplify a little bit on what General Kaler alluded to earlier this week. He mentioned it very quickly. If you look at military utility of ISR, it tends to be driven by knowing that certain things are or are not happening over denied areas. Again, we're talking spacecraft as opposed to airplane-based ISR. Okay, so you're mostly going to use spacecraft for denied areas where we don't have overflight rights. So for those areas, military information predominantly needs to be coming in and coming in with a very high likelihood of arriving, coming in based on a schedule, based on a maneuver plan, or based on, you know, we're taking airplanes in over here, we're going to drop paratroopers here, and I need information about what's happening over here. And that all has to be synchronized together according to a certain clock. Now, if that warfighter needs that kind of information according to a clock, according to a synchronized schedule, then if it's nighttime or if it's bad weather, an electro-optical system won't deliver that information. So that's why General Taylor has suggested that we start looking at radar solutions to get that information. And so we have started rudimentary effort at buying commercial radar products and letting Pacific Command, Central Command get accustomed to and explore how they can benefit from radar. But initially just buy commercial products from Canada's RadarSat-2, for instance, and others. So that's the path that we're starting to walk down to explore if radar is if it is the most beneficial way to satisfy warfighter needs. Let me talk about your first question. You got two questions in there, by the way.
Okay, so let's do it.
We do have a space policy signed back in 2006. We do not have what would come right underneath that, a implementation plan or a grand strategy. And I would think roadmaps would then evolve from a strategy or an implementation plan. And why is it important? We've got, truthfully, several different space communities. We have a commercial space community, which is truthfully international. Almost all of the commercial, geosynchronous commercial ComSat companies are international outfits. How do we work with those? How do we benefit from them? How do we help them? There's several top-level questions about how U.S. military works with commercial folks. And that should not be done in an ad hoc, day-by-day, year-by-year kind of way. Then there's the civil community, NASA, both robotic and human exploration, earth sciences. Then there's Scott Large's organization, and then there's the DoD. And so you have those major chunks of space, and how those interact, and what kind of environments do they interact in? What kind of forum do they interact in? I think, again, if you talk about the top level, we could benefit from more commonality, a roadmap, if you would, about how we work together. A roadmap on how I progress GPS 3A to 3B to 3C, we've got that. A roadmap on how we progress from Discus 3 to WGS, we've got that. What we don't have is that broader question, that broader issue about how we both, the Air Force and Scott Large's organization and NOAA and NASA and the commercial world, how all that works together in a more optimum manner, in a more optimum fashion. So that's how I would phrase it, as opposed to a roadmap. I can roadmap certain missions and how we can improve those the technology of those missions and how we can improve the constellations. I can roadmap that, but how do I either help or benefit from all those other parts of the space community? That's where you need a different kind of forum to do that.
And what shape should that take?
Pardon me?
What shape should that take?
Well, a lot of people have talked about something, a National Space Council, or a subset of the National Security Council. to do that, or something kind of at that level.
Okay, and then TSAC, sorry. You
So
thought
let
you
her
were going
have
to get
two
away with that
questions.
answer in the TSAC?
Perhaps we should have one more.
Okay, how about a call from the hinterlands here?
What about the TSAC question?
You can make that my question.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
We're having on questions.
Well, the answer is I don't know. Aren't you impressed?
Hey, you get that?